Good morning. Today's scripture reading is Psalm 126, Zion's restoration. When the Lord restored the fortunes of Zion, we were like those who dream. Our mouths were filled with laughter then, and our tongues with shouts of joy. Then they said among the nations, the Lord has done great things for them. The Lord had done great things for us. We were joyful. Restore our fortunes, Lord, like the watercourses in the Negev. Those who sow in tears will reap with shouts of joy. Though one goes along weeping, carrying a bag of seed, he will surely come back with shouts of joy, carrying his sheaves. This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Psalm 126. I didn't realize this, considered by many people to be one of the most beautiful psalms written. I like it because it's short. That's how I prefer my songs, nice and short. But it's a little more complex than I thought it was going to be when I picked it to preach on it this Sunday. It was tough. It's a psalm of celebration until about verse 4. And then it seems to kind of morph into a psalm of lament. And honestly, that's kind of the story of life, right? We have our up moments and we have our down moments. At least I know that's the story of my life. And as I read it and went through it and thought about it, I could almost feel the writer and the singers who would sing that song remembering their joy, but also thinking about their pain. So as I read it, I realized it's good for Thanksgiving, right? Because it's a psalm of thanksgiving. But it's also good for, we're about to enter Advent, right? Next week, that 4-week period that leads up to Christmas. And that's a period of people in very dark days longing for something. So I was like, yeah, it's a good psalm for both. So let's jump in. I begin with a question. How many of you could name 5 things that you're thankful for this morning? Yeah, there you go. Some of us can easily raise our hands to that, our thankfulness. But our thankfulness, our hopefulness, our joy has a past. And that past includes pain, it includes grief, and for some of us, it includes suffering and trauma. The song opens right up and it says, when the Lord restored our fortunes in Zion, we were like those who dream. We were like dreamers. That's all we had was a dream. Only a dream. You see, what Israel was going through when this psalm was written, what they're looking back on, is a period where they were taken into exile from their homeland. And being exiled at that time is a horror that we really can't fathom. Okay? They would have been surrounded by a foreign army. All the food and water would have been cut off. There would have been murders in the street. They would have been cannibalizing each other just to live. There would have been just horrible, horrible things, followed by a forced march, hundreds and hundreds of miles of a forced march away from your home where you are now slave to a foreign nation. That was the exile that they were thinking about. And all they had was a dream that maybe someday we can go home. But there's no reason to believe they could go home until one day the king of that foreign nation said, all right, you can go home. Right? Out of nowhere, for no reason, you can go. They were let go. And that's what their past looked like. They look back on that, right? In their joy has this past. And they look back and it's like the weight of the world has been lifted off their shoulders. In fact, as they think about it, it's a worldwide event to them, right? All the nations are looking at us saying that we are so lucky, right? The Lord has done great things for them. So the possibilities now as they are let go are endless. And why are they endless? It's because God has done something good for them. Something happened and things suddenly looked very different, and it was God. So our joy, our hopefulness, our thankfulness It has a past. And oftentimes it's not a very good one. There are reasons why we're joyful, and usually that joy stems from something that was not joyful, right? There's no joy without really knowing pain. Which, like I told the kids, the first Thanksgiving, why were they so thankful? Because a year ago they were starving to death, right? And this year they've come together with other people. Their prayers were answered in the form of Native American people who taught them how to eat and how to store for the winter and what to do next, right? See, those traumas and those past pains, they don't define us. They strengthen us. And we remember them because they make us more thankful for what we have now, and they prepare us for what might come next. So I asked a question, who can name 5 things you're thankful for? I won't ask you to raise your hand this time. If you want to, feel free. Who can name 5 things that are causing you to struggle, to suffer, to hurt? Our joy and thankfulness has a past. But what the psalm tells us is that our suffering, our grief, and our struggle has a future. It's interesting because they tell this great story. Oh, we were like those who dream. The nations say the Lord has done great things for them. And then in verse 3, they're like, the Lord has done great things for us. We are joyful. That's not what it says. It says, we were joyful. In fact, the very next line is, restore our fortunes, right? So the psalm begins with this joy, and then all of a sudden they're like, I remember when we were joyful. God help, right? Something's going on. There's a shift in verses 1 and 2. In verse 3 it shifts, and suddenly verses 4 through 6 is a lament. We hear about tears. And what happened is what started super joyful suddenly becomes super disappointing, right? How many of you have ever walked into a restaurant and looked at a picture of like a cheeseburger, and you're like, I want that. And then it comes. And you look at the picture, and then you look at your cheeseburger, and you look at the picture, and you look at your cheeseburger. If you ever order off a fast food menu and look in the bag, they are 2 very different things. And that's what happens. They get told they can go home, and their head is filled with, I remember home. Home is a city. Home is what they would have been told is a land flowing with milk and honey. And they get home after their exile, and they're like, this isn't home. The walls are torn down. The buildings are burnt to ash. The fields are all fallow and filled with thistles and thorns and weeds. What they had created and what they remembered in their mind had been completely uncreated. It was rubble. There's no more nations rejoicing. Their dreaming is suddenly struggle. Once again, it's struggle. And here's the point of the psalm, in my humble opinion. I said it earlier this morning to someone. The best predictor of future success is past success, right? You know, past results are the best predictor of future results. The idea is to predict the future. You've got to look to the past, and that's what they're doing in the psalm. They're remembering how God led them to joy. Because if you remember how God has once before led you to joy, it'll help you see beyond your current situation and your present tears to a new hope and a new future. And the psalm is great because there's no, like, so suck it up. There's no, so just get over it and go to work. There's none of that. Instead, what the psalm says is go out and plant something. Right? Lord, we need help. Restore our fortunes. This is not what we bargained for. I remember when I was happy, but now I'm sad. And the psalm says, so go out and sow. Sow something small. And it's probably going to be through tears that you're going to have to sow. But sow something. Sow some seed of love or joy or gratefulness. Something that you can plant in your mind You don't have to feel it. The key is that you go out and even if you're weeping, sow it anyway and trust God to use it. Sowing is always an act of hope, right? When you plant a seed, you don't go out and you put it in the ground, you cover it up and you go, oh, that's fun, right? You go out and you hope that something grows. And these folks are planting. They say that like water from in the Negev. The Negev was just a dry river, like 50 weeks of the year. And then it would rain, and all of a sudden it would fill with water, and it would go out into all these little ditches and things, and it would nourish the whole land. These folks are planting in very, very dry places. But when the new pain comes, you have to remember where you've come from and how far you've come. Sow something and pray for new possibilities. Trust God will give you, what did the psalm say on the back of our thing? Shouts of joy and come back carrying sheaves or something like that, bringing in the sheaves. There's in the Message, I like it better, it says, those who went off with heavy hearts came home laughing with armloads of blessing. Armloads of blessing. Trust that God can see you planting through your tears and can send you home with armloads of blessing. I said this is a good Advent hymn, right? A good Advent psalm. And because Advent is that time when people were in darkness and they were ruled over by a foreign government and they were just praying that anything good could happen in the land of Israel. And what came out of darkness was our Messiah. Jesus entered our lives. And so here we are sitting in our church in the present. Some of us who can easily name 5 things they're thankful for, and others of us who can easily name 5 things that are causing us grief or struggle. Some of us are grateful for all God has helped us overcome in our past, and we're thankful, and some of us are hurting and simply anticipating what God might do in the future. So if you're thankful here this morning, remember when it was tough and think about every answered prayer. That should make you more thankful. And it should also make you want to sow more love into the lives of others who are scared or hurt or feel like they have the weight of the world on their shoulders. Use your victories to sow hope. And never forget how far you've come, even if it's been in just a short time. Recently, my cousin and his wife have a whole quiver full of children. Just this crazy, like bounce off the walls group of kids who are just so wonderful. His name is Chris, my cousin, and his daughter recently. His wife was sharing. Jessica is her name. Was sharing about their daughter Edith. She's 10 years old, and she was running around in a church parking lot, and she was in flip-flops, and it was wet, and she slipped and fell, and she cut her knee just wide open. It just opened up, right? And the story, she said, is that Edith just was, it wasn't so much the pain, it was the fear of how possibly could they fix her knee. I mean, she saw it, she saw the blood, she saw the carnage. How could they possibly fix the knee? For days, she said she couldn't even look at her knee. And they pulled it. You know, it's amazing, right? When you're wide open and they're like, snip, snip, snip. 3 stitches, you're good, right? No, for Edith it took 11 stitches later. And for days she still couldn't look at her knee. And then she finally looked at it. And just okay, my knee might someday look normal again, right? 10 years old. Like, that's hard. 10 years old. She's now 11, recently turned 11, and one of her friends just recently fell down and hit his head. And it split wide open. Anybody who knows when you get a head injury what it looks like, right? The blood goes everywhere, right? And so here she is with this little boy who now has been rushed off to the hospital to get his own set of stitches. And her mother says that night she came to her and she said, Mom, in the morning you have to take me shopping to buy him something to make him feel better, and I'll use my own money, right? The lesson we hope all of our kids learn when they're 10 or 11 years old, to understand to use their pain to understand other people's pain, right? To use what they've learned to love and care for other people. She used her pain to spread love and care for those feeling the pain that she felt. And I don't know if she knows it. I suspect she's probably been told by this point, knowing her parents, but I hope she knows how far she came in the last 6 months. Never forget how far you've come. What you've gone through to get where you are. It doesn't have to be a big national, international instance. It can be something very small that helps you feel the pain of others around you. If you're suffering here this morning, you have a future. Use those past victories to remind you to cultivate something good. Because here's the catch. There's always a catch, right? Lisa and I are recently reading a book, and the author said, you can plant corn, and corn will flourish. Corn is good. You eat corn. Or you can plant nightshade, and nightshade will flourish. And you don't eat nightshade, that's not good. But regardless of what you plant, it will grow, whether it's good food or poison. What you nurture will grow. Go out and plant something if you're suffering. But remember, you can plant bitterness. You can plant hate. You can plant anger. And it will flourish in your life. Plant something good. Even in your suffering, even through your tears, plant something that brings you hope, that doesn't push you into a hole. It's too easy to believe that a setback is a permanent setback. It's too easy to believe that this hurt, this trauma, this grief is just deserved and it is who I am from now on. Let me tell you something, that is a lie. Sow through your tears and believe in your future. Remember what you've overcome in the God who delivers. Jesus taught us that there is hope on the other side of pain, that there is love on the other side of betrayal, and that there is life on the other side of death. If that's not the gospel, if that's not the message Jesus taught, I need someone in this church to enlighten me, because obviously I don't know what I'm talking about. Life, however, I know for a fact is shifting, right? The person who celebrates today could grieve tomorrow. The person who grieves today may celebrate tomorrow. One day is joy, and on a day that is joy, I want you to celebrate and love and be grateful. That's your Thanksgiving Day message. The next day could be pain. On those days, I want you to believe that God is there, that Christ is there, and is offering you a future with armloads of blessing. It's just on the other side. Embrace the dark winter season, but look for the lights. Trust that Jesus is going to touch your life. That's the Advent lesson. Listen, Thanksgiving has a past. Remember answered prayers. Grief has a future. Trust God and believe that He can do what He has done before. Whether it's with praise or with tears, sow something, plant something, hope, trust, gratefulness, and believe and anticipate armloads of blessing. God, I give you thanks that though you don't promise us all good days, you promise us joy and hope. You promise us your love and your comfort. And so I pray, Lord, that no matter where we are today, we would be thankful. If we come here with joy, may we respond by planting joy. If we come here in grief, may we sow hope through our tears. In Jesus' name.